and batted around for a while.
Wonderful. Well, you know, Mr. Garamendi, while you were working in that conference committee, I'd really appreciate it if you could see fit to, and this goes back to the environmental piece a little bit. The Senate bill includes the Middle Mississippi Environmental Pilot Program, which gives the Army Corps of Engineers authority to restore and protect fish and wildlife habitat along the Middle Mississippi River while they're undertaking navigation projects. Now, right now, they're just constrained to working on navigation. Well, doesn't it make a lot of sense, by the way, while you're working on navigation, to also, when you can, improve the fish and the wildlife habitat? You know, in southern Illinois, fishing is a big sport. We have a lot of tourists come in. Hunting, goose hunting is a big sport, and deer hunting. And if you can improve that wildlife habitat, it's going to help the environment as well as help our tourist economy in southern Illinois. Now, that was part of the bill that I introduced, but it got stripped out before it passed the House. But it did pass the Senate. So as part of your conference, if you could help me out with that, I'd certainly appreciate it.
This is part of what we ought to be doing, and that is looking at these issues and maximizing the potential and the benefit that comes from a project. Let me give you another example of the same thing, and it's along the environmental line. Right now, the Corps of Engineers in dredging in the San Francisco Bay Area, let's just say the Port of Oakland over here, when they dredge there, they have to use the cheapest way of disposing of the dredging materials called spoils. They have to, basically, they take it, those mostly sand and clay, they take it out here to Alcatraz, and they dump it in Alcatraz, and the tide takes it out past the San Francisco Golden Gate. Well, we're saying, wait a minute, that's extremely valuable material to build habitat in areas that have been despoiled over the years. For example, down here in the southern part of the bay, these were great salt flats where the salt industry used the bay to evaporate the bay water and get salt. Well, those need to be restored, and it's quite possible that the material from the dredging could be used in that way or in other habitat programs, even up here into the Delta. But it's not the cheapest. So we're looking at a little tweak here that would allow the Port of Oakland or the other ports in the San Francisco Bay Area and really around the nation to do an environmental project along with the dredging project, very similar to what you're talking about on the Mississippi River. So I see common cause here. I see common cause where we can maximize the total benefit for the nation. It could be an additional cost that the port will have to pick up. Okay, but we get a twofer. We get environmental benefits as well as the economic benefits of the port. You got any other things on your list?
I'll just close out with saying, Mr. Garamendi, I thank you for the time this evening, but I think this has been a true team effort from manufacturers and business groups, labor unions, port authorities, and the Agriculture Committee. You know, I sit on the Agriculture Committee, and the ag community knows how critical this legislation is for Illinois. And Congress needs to get things done for the American people. And no job is more important than keeping our economy strong right here at home. Thank you, Mr. Garamendi.
General Enyart, or Congressman Enyart, or Bill, thank you so very, very much. I really appreciate working with you tonight on this critical issue of the fundamental investment. Let's just remember, this is not new. The Army Corps of Engineers has been around since the very earliest days of our democracy. The Army Corps has been responsible for the waterways of America, and the Water Resources Reform and Development Act is going to be an opportunity for America to really move its infrastructure, particularly the trade. Remember, just review, we're talking 13 million jobs immediately depend upon the Water Resource Reform Act. We're talking about 99% of our trade travels through our ports and waterways, whether it's on the Mississippi, the Sacramento, the San Joaquin rivers, or the great ports and the water and the coastal part of America. It's critically important. And as we do these things, we have the opportunity to reach back into the history of America and remember what the Founding Fathers talked about way back in George Washington's very early days. that these fundamental investments in what they called canals and ports and roads were critical to the growth of the United States at the very, very outset. And George Washington and Alexander Hamilton also recognized the importance of international trade and that we get those trade policies correct. And so as we get ready to do the Water Resources Reform and Development Act, which is critical, and the conference committee starts tomorrow, and I have the honor of being on that conference committee. We also think about the way in which the trade of America is dependent upon our work in getting sound policies in place, and it's also critically important in dealing with the issue of international trade agreements, whether it's the Trans-Pacific Trade Program or the new one that's being worked on with Europe. We have to protect our own jobs. We have to protect the American economy. And in doing so, we must carry out our constitutional responsibility given to us by the United States, us, the representatives and the senators. The Constitution says that it is the legislature, Congress and the Senate, that shall set trade policy, and that requires that we have the opportunity to look at the details of every trade policy and not fast-track trash through the House. Joining me and taking up, as I wrap up my hour, is my colleague on the Republican side. Why don't you take my last couple of minutes, and then you can have your half hour or hour.
Well, first of all, let me thank the gentleman for yielding to me. I know it's a bit unusual when Democrats and Republicans come down and share portions of their time. I think it's actually what the American people want a little more. I wish you do this more often. I'm giving a talk in a few moments on health care. You and I will probably disagree on some fundamental philosophical approaches to that, and that's fine. You're in one party, I'm in another. You have your own inclinations, I have my own inclinations and approaches. But to try to work constructively toward problem solving, I think it would behoove us all if we can figure out a better pathway to do that. And that's why I'm grateful to you for just lending me a few moments, because as I was listening to your speech, you talked about something that I did not know, that George Washington refused to wear a suit made in England and went back and said, give me a manufacturing policy for this country. And it was a very curious but good story to demonstrate a particular dynamic that, as you rightly pointed out, is part of our modern day debate about how we do trade agreements in this fast track authority. I think we have to be very, very cautious about this. Trade can have the potential benefit to raise all boats. It has to be fair. It has to be has an element of free, but it has to also be enforceable. And there are other dynamics to trade other than just the economic benefit that should be measured, such as the human cost of production in various societies, and we've glossed over those things in the past. So I just wanted to commend you and thank you for raising this issue of giving basically over our authority by saying we'll vote to deny our authority to review the fullness of a trade agreement should one come through to us. I think that's a serious concern, so I want to commend the gentleman for raising the issue.
Well, thank you so very much, and I look forward to working with you on that issue. I know it's going to be coming, well, we don't know exactly when, but they're trying to wrap up, our trade rep, our ambassador is trying to wrap this up and present it to us, and they're talking fast track, and I'm going, time out, guys. Time out. We need to review. We need to make sure that it's fair trade, not just free trade, but fair trade, fair to the American worker, fair to the American manufacturer, farmer, and the like.
If I could add something, I think we ought to call it smart trade.
I like that word, too.
Yeah, throw
Can
that
we
one in there,
compromise on that?
Yeah, sounds good.
Let it be. I yield back my time. Thank you very much.